I just felt led to share. I was so excited. I just got home from the drive-in outdoor service of Bridgeway Baptist Church on Avalon Avenue. Our pastor preached, our praise team sang, and we did it all with the assistance of the local police department. And that's because our pastor prayed about it. He consulted with people in our membership who are medical professionals and officials. He asked the fire department and police department what he would need to do for this to work. And because of the way he decided to go about it, we were actually assisted by the local authorities to help direct people and get them parked in a way that allowed for cars but still followed the distance rule. The stage outside was set up so that all of us who were on the stage singing were at least 6 feet apart. All the guidelines were followed, and it was a wonderful service. And it just reminded me of the story of Daniel. In the Old Testament, in the book of Daniel, the Babylonians went in and captured and kidnapped quite a few of the Jewish young men, the strong Jewish young men, and they wanted to train them to be soldiers. And one of the things that they decided to do to train those men is to have them follow the diet that their Babylonian soldiers followed. The problem was the Jewish men were trying to follow God's diet. If you've read the Old Testament, you know they were not supposed to eat pork. There were other things they weren't supposed to eat. Well, all that was in the diet of the Babylonians. Now, I have to wonder, what would they have done in 2020? In 2020, they would probably rant about it on Facebook. They would probably march on Washington and say, don't make us eat pork and shrimp. They would make a big old huge stink out of it. But here's what Daniel did. Daniel prayed, and then he went respectfully to the head of that army that were recruiting the soldiers and training them and said, look, he said, we want to do what you want us to do, and we want to be good soldiers for you. I'm going to ask that you allow us to continue the diet that we've been following. And you can test us at the end of this training. And if we are not at least as strong as the Babylonian soldiers, then you can punish us in whatever way you see fit. So they not only did they follow the diet God had set out for them, they didn't disobey God because the guard said, yes, you can follow that diet. He went respectfully and asked if he could follow God's diet, and the man said yes. And they worked hard and they trained hard, and at the end of that time period, the men of Israel were better, faster, stronger soldiers than the Babylonian men because they respected authority in the way that they decided to obey God. God rewarded them, and the Babylonian army rewarded them. They changed the old diet to this new Jewish diet because the Jewish young men were so much better. That's how we follow God in the midst of this virus. We don't cast aside our earthly authority. We don't make comparisons of buying groceries to sitting in a church building. We respect our authorities and we worship God together in a way that follows the rules. That's what Daniel did. That's what Jesus did. Jesus said, render unto Caesar that which is Caesar's. And he didn't say that because he loved taxes. He said that because they were saying, well, since we serve God, do we have to do what the Romans say? And he said, render unto Caesar that which is Caesar's, because Jesus understood that part of our obligation as Christians is to be respectful of the earthly authority that God has allowed to be placed under us. And just like my pastor was obedient to God and obedient to our local authorities, and because of that was able to have a service with us tonight, if we will be willing to be creative and obedient, God will provide us a way to come together. We don't have to get on Facebook and claim that all our rights are being taken away. We still have the freedom to worship God. We also have the responsibility to make sure people many of whom don't know him, do not contract a disease which could cause them to die without knowing Christ. And that's pretty important. So thank you, Brother Chris, for doing it the right way, for respecting authority, and for having the kind of attitude where people who don't know Jesus will look at our pastor and say, there's a man who's sincere. There's a man I respect. Thank you so much. And I hope that this has maybe made a difference for some of us that seem to be in a conundrum. We can obey God and we can respect our earthly authorities, just like Romans 13 says. It doesn't have to be either or.